My carries 5:30, so whenever you're ready.
Welcome everybody to the Hutchinson City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020. Approve the council agenda. Any agenda additions or corrections?
Mayor and Council, I don't have any additions or corrections for you tonight.
All right, invocation is full from the Hope Family Church.
Sure, you still got to take action on the agenda.
Hey.
So.
Oh,
We got to move to approve.
okay.
I'll make a
roll
motion
call.
to approve.
All
I'll
right.
second.
Motion by Mary, second by Chad. Roll call. Chad,
Aye.
Mary, Steve. Aye. Dave.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, now invocation from the Hope Family Church.
There for a minute, I thought you were voting as to whether I could come forward or not. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
It was close. It was close.
It was close. I'm Dr. Tim Vanden Langenberg, pastor of Hope Family Church, and I want to commend you, City Council, staff, and various departments. You give us a good place to live, and we are thankful, and I commend you. And we live in exciting and interesting times, to say the least. And in the New Testament book of Philemon, the Christian church had to deal with the issue of slavery in its day. But there is a verse that the Apostle Paul wrote, and I pray this over you today. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. I pray that you would receive grace, peace, strength, courage, joy, everything that you need in order to lead well. May it be so in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. Dave, do you want to do the honors, please?
I do. Would all stand with me, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
Public.
one nation, under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Next is recognitions of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anybody have anything to share tonight? All right, we do have a resolution, resolution number 15185, resolution accepting $3,000 donation from the Hutchinson Husky Baseball Club for the VMF outfield fencing project.
Mayor and Council, you may recall this was a discussion during our capital improvement plan, but the Huskies are planning on donating $15,000 over the next couple of years to assist in the construction of a new outfield fence. And they're here tonight to contribute $3,000 of that project. And this will essentially help kind of kick the project off. I never did talk to him beforehand, but Kyle Messner is here if he wanted to address the council. If you guys had any questions for him, otherwise he does have a check he'll be presenting tonight. And like I said, so we're just looking for the council to obviously accept that donation.
It's something more for Matt. Just, is there a timeline for the project?
I believe they're looking to start it this probably September, October, once maybe even August, once the kind of the baseball season's done. If you haven't heard, they are going to be doing I guess a short-lived season. I think through the month of July. Playoffs are probably in August. So I think once we know that season is done in Hutchinson, they'll begin doing work on it this fall, so it'd be ready for the next baseball season.
I'll make a motion to accept. It's a good
I'll second
project.
that. I'll second. Who seconded it?
You did, Dave.
Okay. The only thing I would like to see, if they're gonna hand over that check to the city, I'd like to see that, presentation, please.
I guess they're calling you up, Kyle, so.
Community involvement.
So I just want to thank you. My name is Kyle Metz. I'm the Vice President of the Hutchinson Huskies. We try to, as a board, we try to give back to the MF for improvements. And we saw this field project, this fence project come up. And as a board, we voted to, over the next 5 years, give $3,000 a year towards that. It's just something that we like to do, like to give back for the use of the field and whatnot. So today I have a check for $3,000.
Kyle, could you talk a little bit about your season, when it's gonna go and how many games you're gonna have?
So with this COVID virus stuff, it's shortened season. So we plan on playing about 10 to 12 league games. And we have our first non-league game tomorrow night. And then we start up league on July 1st. So that'll go through July into a little bit of August. And then we start playoffs the second weekend in August, and then the state tournament is after that.
Go ahead, Steve.
Steve, you're on mute, so.
Thank you. What I was asking was, can people go watch the games, or how is
Yes.
that being handled?
We are having fans there. We set up every 6 feet. We got stuff set up at the field. We're gonna announce every 5-6 times a game about social distancing and stuff like that. We have wipes down there. We have sanitized stuff down there. So we're all set up through that. John Arlt is the guy in charge of all that stuff, and he's on top of all that.
And just for the councils, and one of the things that we did require before we kind of gave the final okay for them to move forward was for them to present us with a preparedness plan as a staff, of which they have done and met all the guidelines for that as well. Including right now, the capacity is 250, and so they've got that laid out within their plan as well to make sure that they meet all of that.
Kyle,
Thanks.
is there gonna be limited concessions, or how you handling that?
So we talked about tonight, maybe just doing like beverages and candy, no hot food, no popcorn, nothing like that. Try to limit the amount of handling we can. You know, our park is big enough where they can all spread out. We got a lot of seating down left field, right field line, and they can bring their chairs and whatnot, so. You know.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Thanks for the donation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, there was a motion by Steve, second by Dave to approve the resolution. Roll call, Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Hi.
Dave?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Public comment. Anybody out to address the city council? Matt?
Most of everybody signed up, did we? So. Okay. Not for public comment. We'll have some potentially for some agenda items. So.
All right, thank you. Moving on, the consent agenda will be done by one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion.
Yeah, item number 6 you still need to do. So.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I should put my glasses on now. Approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes of June 9th, 2020.
So
I'll
moved.
move. I'll second.
Motion by Dave, second by Mary to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor, roll call. Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Matt. All right, now moving on. Consent agenda, again, that'll be done by one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. A is approval of amending Zella's liquor license to include outdoor seating area. B is approval of summary ordinance number 20-814, amending chapter 112 liquor regulations. C is approval of resolution number 15179, resolution establishing location for traffic control devices. And that's gonna be on Ash Street, Griffin Avenue, Northwoods Avenue, and Hillcrest Road. D is approval of resolution number 15180, resolution to sell at auction surplus public work property. That would be a pickup truck and compactor. C is approval of resolution number 15182, resolution adopting finding of facts and reason for approval of preliminary and final plat vacating the easement and site plan at 327 and 479 Highway 7 East with favorable planning commission recommendation. F is approval of resolution number 15183, resolution adopting finding of facts and reason for approval of site plan located at 1105 Benjamin Avenue Southeast, favorable planning commission recommendations. G is approval of MnDOT airport maintenance and operation agreements amendment. H is approval of Minnesota DOT indemnification agreement. I is approval of lease agreement with Ace Hardware for use of city parking lot. J is consideration for approval of items for Truck Highway 722 and Montana Street crossing improvements, letting number 2, project number 20-02. Under there's resolution 15177, resolution ordering preparation of report on improvement, and resolution number 15178, resolution receiving report and calling for hearing on improvement. K is approval of agreement with Independent School District 423. We have ground maintenance, use of facilities, and Birch Arena. L is claims appropriation and contract payments. Is there anything anybody wants pulled off?
Mayor, I'd ask you to pull item H and I. We got some changes to the documents that were included in the packet.
And I had a couple questions on E and F, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the balance.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the balance. Roll call, Mary?
Aye.
Steve? Aye. Dave?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Steve, why don't we start with, we'll start with E. Steve, go ahead.
Sure. I don't know if Dan is available, Matt, or,
Yeah, yes. So,
okay. Hi, Dan. There you are.
Hi.
Just had two questions, well, actually three on this, but first is, doesn't say anything about SAC and WAC. In the conditions, I assume when future uses are defined?
Yes. Yeah, they would be subject to the SAC and WAC policy that's currently in place. However, if you felt like adding a condition noting that would be appropriate, staff would be open to that.
Okay. I think that would be helpful just to have it on record, as part of this. So
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And then with the private utilities, the roads, the ponds, is there potential issues if a piece of the property got sold off? How do we protect, the properties and the city maybe a little bit?
Sure. I can speak to this and maybe Kent would like to add in as well. The thought is we would have a development agreement that would be put in place between the city and the developer. And then within that, we'd want to see association documents in the case that would ever be split off, so that we knew that it was going to be cared for and maintained properly and everything in place for that. Like I said.
Okay, is that something, again, as a condition that there should be a association agreement as part of the development agreement,
I believe
or
we have
not?
something in there regarding association, or excuse me, a development agreement, but we can certainly note that it would be a development agreement, and then, at the council's wish, if you wanted to have something in regarding the association or covenants, at this time, that'd be acceptable to us. I know the applicant is here as well. They may have a question or comment on that.
Sure. I don't know if anybody wanted to say something on any of that. I guess my last question was, it talks about the dry pond and, potential overflow, emergency overflow. Is that, but there's a 1 foot buffer or shelf or something like that, or a little wall above that?
Yeah, I believe that our staff had indicated they'd like to see a 1 foot freeboard on that. Initially, it was less than that, and I believe the 1 foot was acceptable to our staff. Kent can correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's an outlet.
And an outlet.
Okay. Yeah, and so what it talks about an under drain but that's something that's just there in case it doesn't drain properly. Is that something that would just be opened up and then left open in the future if the drainage doesn't work quite right?
I can let Kent speak to under drain.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, it's just at the bottom of the pond infiltration. It doesn't open and close. It's just there all the time in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's to help with drainage though then, if the...
Yeah, I think it just connects to the drainage system. And it's just a technical term, and our engineers and as well as the developer's engineers have looked at that and are, I believe, in agreement on the need for that.
Okay. Just was concerned about the potential for, the overflow onto the adjoining property. So as was noted in the staff report, but it sounds like you have some good plans, so.
Yes, I'd also note on condition number 11, there's just a typographical error on that one. It should note cross easement rights for utilities need to be dedicated and recorded. There's just a word missing in that in the packet. And we'll correct that for the final.
Well, you mentioned that the applicant.
Yeah, and I believe there's a separate one for the roadway. Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve, but with the 2 added conditions. One, that an association agreement would be part of the development agreement. And then also that SAC and WAC charges will be applied per city policy once future uses are determined. And then also the correction that Dan noted on item 11.
I'll second.
I didn't know if the applicant had anything to say, or that's okay.
He's fine.
All right, motion by Steve, second by Chad, to approve with the additional language. Roll call, Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Steve, F.
Yeah, just another drainage question. Dan, you mentioned, some concerns with the drainage that would potentially go to that street entrance on Benjamin Avenue, and had some thoughts apparently that might address that.
Basically, the plan had shown a sheet flow to a berm. In a city setting, that's not really an appropriate drainage method. We'd like to see that conveyed to a curb with a catch basin. And I believe our staff has worked with the applicant to communicate that, and I believe they're on board with that as well. It's just a pretty standard detail that we utilize within city development versus more of a rural instance of development.
Okay. So will there be an extra catch basin added, or it's still just the one by the?
No, I think there'll probably end up being an additional one along that curb line. And again, that's something that their engineer will lay out, and then we'll review that to make sure that it's appropriate. But I believe we're all on the same page at this point after some conversations yesterday.
Okay. Thanks. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Steve, second by Mary to approve. Any other discussion on it? Roll call. Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. H, Matt?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, we had, I don't know, something happened with technology gremlins and missed a couple pages. And so we handed out the full agreement that wasn't included in the packet. We were missing a page or two. And so that's really the only reason for pulling it off the agenda, just to acknowledge that the full agreement was presented tonight.
The motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to approve. Any other discussion? Roll call. Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item I, Matt.
Mayor and Council, I'll hand it over to City Attorney Mark Zavora. We had a couple minor changes to the agreement from what was included in your packet, and he'll walk you through those changes for your consideration tonight.
Thanks, Matt, and thank you, Mayor and council members. As Matt talked about, we have for your consideration this very short lease agreement between the city and Ace Hardware to allow Ace Hardware to continue, at least on a temporary basis, to have their U-Haul vehicles parked in the Econo Foods parking lot. City staff felt it was important that we have some type of agreement memorialized to allow Ace Hardware to use the property while the city is developing its future plans for that parking lot area and the former grocery store. So as Matt talked about, a couple of changes were added to the agreement, and I just wanted to point those out to you. I believe you've all been provided with a revised version of the agreement. But the three changes really are under the insurance provision. It talks about how the city is going to be added as a named insured on all the insurance policies. And I was able to confirm that with the insurance provider for Ace Hardware that we have in fact been listed as an additional insured. And then there's two additional lines added in section number 7 that talks about the fact that if there's some environmental concern that arises as a result of vehicles being parked in that parking lot, that Ace Hardware would be responsible for any of the cleanup or other ramifications that might arise because of that use. And then finally, a sentence was added to talk about the fact that whenever this agreement is terminated, that Ace Hardware is going to be responsible for making sure that all of its equipment or other materials would be removed from that premises, and If Ace Hardware didn't do it, we would do it and then pursue Ace Hardware for those costs. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that. Otherwise, staff would ask that you approve it.
I make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Dave, second by, was that you, Chad? Yep. Any other discussion? I know Dave is present out there, isn't he, Dave Kramer?
He is.
I know that, I kind of talked to him a little bit before. Maybe Dave could come up, and I know that he said that he was in contact with U-Haul, and they do have a provision in there to make sure that they clean up any spills. So if Dave wants to comment on that or not, it's up to him.
I think he's good.
Okay. All right. Motion by is on the floor. Roll call, Mary,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Dave says thank you. Dave said thank you as well, so.
All right, Matt, I know we do have a public hearing. I know Mr. Moore was out there. Does he have anything to
Well, the
comment
public
on?
hearing isn't regarding that item. That's
Right.
number 10 on the agenda. And we've got 2 minutes, so I'm not sure if that will last 2 minutes. Otherwise, I maybe ask the council to address item number 11, and then we'd be ready to go into the public hearing portion.
All right, we'll do item number 11, issuing tobacco license to Wasim Abdullah of the Smoke for Less Hutch Incorporated.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this is simply just an ownership change. And so as a part of that ownership change, we needed to update, obviously, the tobacco license with the new applicant. And I know the application has been reviewed and signed off on, and so we'd ask the council to consider approving it as well.
I'll make
I
a
make a
motion
mo-
to approve.
I'll second it.
Gary, your mic's off.
See, you tell me that I always gotta put it off, so, sorry. Motion by Mary, second by Dave to approve. Any other discussion? Roll call, Mary,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Aye.
Make one,
Oh,
ask
go
one
ahead.
question. There's sign wasn't all intact. I don't know if that's been fixed yet, Matt. Could that be a condition that we approve this with, that they fix their sign? If it still is in disrepair?
I'll have Dan, I guess, address that, so.
We'll note that they need to fix their sign. I don't know that we can tie that to this approval though.
Sure, okay.
So we'll just get a notice that they need to fix that sign. Obviously with the road closed, I hadn't been through there. I hadn't noticed it.
Yeah, it's been a while where the front panel has been missing.
Okay.
So, okay, thanks.
Melissa, did they complete the action on that?
Yeah, we didn't do the action yet. Roll call, Mary,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
aye, motion carries. Well, it is 6 o'clock. We do have public hearing, consideration of adoption of the modification to the development program for the Development District Number 4 and the proposed establishment of tax increment financing district number 4-21 and the adoption of the tax increment financing plan. Therefore, we have two resolutions underneath there. Resolution number 15175, resolution adopting a modification to the development program for Development District Number 4 and establishing a tax increment financing district number 4-21 and adopting a TIF plan therefore. And B is resolution number 15176, resolution authorizing a interfund loan for the advance of certain costs in connection with the TIF District number 4-21.
Mayor and council, hand it over to Economic Development Director Miles Hippel.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, good evening. Tonight we're talking about potentially bringing a new business to Hutchinson. And in order to do that, we want to talk about establishing a tax increment financing district for that project, and I'll explain that a little bit. This is a continuance of a public hearing that we opened initially a month ago. Basically, the idea is to, we're going to be selling a lot in the industrial park to a developer called Droptine Properties, and they are going to be building a building for this company that's going to be coming to Hutchinson. This company will lease the building from the developer, and the purpose of the tax increment financing district is to really incentivize and then make it financially feasible for the developer to do the project. So, do I get to see the slides or no?
Yep, I can. I'm just waiting for you to
Okay.
give me the go ahead. So,
And the council sees these?
yep, council
Okay.
sees them as well. So,
Okay,
you just got to give me the old next slide.
next slide. There we go. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, tonight then, basically, we're just considering the establishment of an economic development tax increment financing district. And I'll explain this a little bit for the folks that are watching this at home. Next slide. Basically, tax increment financing, that's a public financing tool that can be used for economic development or redevelopment or housing projects. Tonight, we're looking at doing an economic development project. And really, it's really about creating new jobs and expanding the tax base. Next slide. So just a real quick recap, and we've shared this before, but I like to do it so that the public at home understands what we're doing. Basically, tax increment financing, the way it works is it's capturing the property taxes from a new development. And so if, for example, you had a vacant lot, there's not much taxable value there, and you could say it had a property tax that it paid each year of $500. And then you move forward and put a new development on that same exact lot, you have a lot more value there, then the property taxes would be $20,000. And so the gain between those two then would be $19,500. That's the amount that can get captured. Well, it just illustrates an amount that can get captured as the tax increment, and then that gets used to pay for things that are qualifying project expenses, excuse me. So that would include land acquisition or site work or parking lots or stuff like that. So that's just a real quick summary of how tax increment financing works. And then we use it really to help make good projects feasible. The goal is to use it in those instances where a project needs a little push in order to become reality. So it's projects that otherwise would not happen that we would use tax increment financing to make these projects financially feasible. So that's the rationale behind it. Next slide. So tonight, the project is called Rite-Way Conveyors. That's the name of the company. And we started talking with them, I would say, gosh, 6, 7, 8 months ago already. It's a company, they just lease manufacturing space, and they're just really at a point where they need to have their own building. So the plan is that they would put up a the plan is that they would put up a 35,000 square foot manufacturing building. There'd be another 5,500 square feet of offices. So the whole project would be just a little bit more than 40,500 square feet. As I mentioned, there's a developer, it's called Droptine Properties. They're the ones that are going to be financing and building the building. They're going to lease it to Rite-Way Conveyors for the short term, and then Rite-Way Conveyors potentially would purchase this building later on. Next slide. Rite-Way Conveyors, they are a manufacturer of conveyors and product handling equipment. So especially nowadays where with social distancing and so many things that really stores, you know, you can't really do as much in-person shopping. So nowadays, a lot of things happen by mail. And so that just happens to be the set of customers that Rite-Way Conveyors sells to. They do a lot of work for Amazon, for FedEx, for UPS, for DHL, so that they can have their big distribution centers of it. And the first phase would be this 35,000 square foot manufacturing building, and then the offices with it. So next slide. 26 jobs that are already existing, 26 existing employees of the company. They're going to be coming with this project to work in Hutchinson. There's a number of new employees that are currently being hired. And then once the plant gets opened up, which we would anticipate hopefully by the turn of the year, then sometime after that, they're going to be hiring a couple additional employees. So really at the end of the day, it could be 30 to 35, I would imagine. And these are jobs that pay anywhere from $14 to $25 an hour, plus benefits. It really depends on what their skill sets are and what their job classification is. And then the property taxes on this project would be just shy of $60,000. So initially, we're going to capture a chunk of that to help cover the cost of the industrial park lot. But once the TIF district expires, then that money would come back into the tax rolls. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at an economic development TIF district. So we're going to capture these property taxes for 8 years. And our plan basically is that we're going to sell the lot, the industrial park lot, to the developer, Droptine Properties, for $1. The city's going to capture the tax increment, and then we're going to reimburse ourselves for the actual cost of the lot. The actual sticker price for the lot is $326,675. So that's what we're going to look to get ourselves reimbursed through the tax increment. So over the 8 years, the projected amount of tax increment will be, it'll be in a range. It'll be somewhere between $362,000 and $412,000. It just depends on what inflation does and then how the estimated market value of the project is adjusted from one year to the next. So, so the developer gains because they're able to get a nice 7.5 acre lot for $1 on which to do the project. It makes it economically feasible for the developer and the company. And then the city gains because we're going to get ourselves reimbursed for the true cost of the lot. Those dollars are going to flow back to the community improvement fund. So that's where the dollars came from initially to buy our new industrial park. So we'll begin the process of reimbursing that with this project. Next slide. Couple of things I need to cover here as part of the business subsidies statute. So I need to describe the subsidy. So it's 8-year economic development TIF district. And as I mentioned, the estimated tax increment would be somewhere between $362,000 and $412,000. Next slide. The public purpose of the subsidy is to enhance the economic diversity of the city. We want to add employers. So we We're creating high quality job growth and then also increase the tax base of the community over the long term. Next slide. The measurable, tangible goals. We're going to say it's the creation of the 2 jobs from when the company opens up the new facility. And then within a 2-year window from that, the 2 jobs will get created, each paying a minimum of $12.60 an hour exclusive of benefits. And then, as I said, within 24 months. So here I should note, we're being extremely conservative about what the job creation goals are just because of the economic situation. I mean, we hope everything goes good. We expect it's going to go very good, but we just want to be conservative when it comes to setting these job creation goals. Next slide. Financial obligation. If the company does not meet the goals, then they need to repay the assistance plus interest. So that would be prorated to reflect partial fulfillment of the goal. So naturally, we don't anticipate that, but this is kind of the fallback position. Next slide. And then why the subsidy is needed. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's really to offset the cost of land for the project, to make it economically feasible for the developer to do the project, and then also do incentivize development in the city's industrial park. We built a new industrial park, I'm going to say it was probably 2009. And so, you know, we haven't had a ton of projects out there. So part of it is just to hopefully incentivize and get more things going on in the industrial park. Next slide. And then as part of a business subsidy, the company has to make a commitment to continue operations for 5 years. So we'll get a letter to that effect and just keep that in file. Next slide. And then is there a parent corporation? No, there's no parent corporation. Next slide. And then financial assistance by other grantors. There's no other financial assistance at this time. It's really just the TIF district that is being used to make this project work. Next slide. And then a review. Planning Commission looked at it, as you saw earlier, and they passed a resolution that stated that the proposed project conforms to the city's comprehensive plan. It's manufacturing. It'll be in a light industrial zone, so everything fits together. And then also the EDA board has reviewed the project and they're recommending approval of the TIF district this evening. Next slide. So tonight, basically we're requesting 2 things. First is resolution that actually establishes the TIF district. That'd be resolution 15175. And then the second thing is approval of resolution authorizing an interfund loan. So this is just borrowing about $15,000 from development district number 4. It's really just to pay our TIF consultant. And then as the new TIF district generates tax increment, that will allow us to pay back development district number 4 plus interest. So that's all within resolution 15176. Next slide. And then also with that, once that's done, then we would request authorization for the mayor and city administrator to sign the documents related to the project. So that would be the development agreement with Droptine Properties, the purchase agreement, setting the parameters for the land sale, and then a short-term lease agreement because the developer wants to get construction going as soon as possible. And it might be a few weeks before we complete all the steps to actually be able to sell the lot physically to the developer. So among those things is the land sale ordinance and things like that. So next slide. So I think that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have or the public may have.
Anybody have any questions for Miles?
Well, it just seems like to me, Miles, it's pretty straightforward, so I would definitely make a motion to approve that.
Dave, we need to go into a public, we need to go into a
Oh,
public hearing
yes, we do. Thank you.
All right, if there's no questions, I'll open it up for public comment.
Mayor, I don't see anybody looking to address the city council at this moment.
Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to close the public hearing. Roll call, Mary,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
aye. Motion carries. Need a motion to approve the two resolutions.
I'll start over again then. Still looks like a great project. Haven't changed my mind any, so I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Motion by Dave, second by Mary. Any other discussion on it?
Do we have to also approve, like you mentioned, Miles, the development agreement and, should that be part of the motion or is that a separate, there's really not an agenda item per se for that?
It can be part of the same motion, but they should acknowledge it.
Okay, you can adjust your motion, I believe, to include approval of the documents that I referenced. So they can all be one, but Dave should restate his motion with that.
I'll amend the motion to state those facts.
I'll second.
All right. Motion by Dave, second by Mary with the addition. Roll call, Mary,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Miles.
All right, thank you very much.
Say, Miles, can you by chance stay around for staff update?
I sure will, you bet.
All right, thank you.
Here, your mic is off.
Now I'm back. All right. Moving on, no unfinished business, no communication request petitions. Back to new business. First reading of ordinance number 20-816, ordinance authorizing the sales of municipally owned land to Droptine Properties LLC.
Mayor and council, this is essentially the first reading of an ordinance to officially sell that land that was just discussed.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
A second.
Motion by Dave, second by Steve to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor? Mary, roll call.
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
aye. Motion carries. Moving on, resolution number 15181, resolution adopting finding of facts and reason for approval of conditional use permit and site plan review for improvements to West Elementary School located at 875 School Road Southwest, and they'll split planning commission recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you just noted, this is the approval process for the project going on over at West Elementary School. Really at the Planning Commission meeting, I think everything went relatively smoothly, other than the discussion relative to the access points on the school road. As you noted, probably in the report that I sent, staff had recommended that the 3 accesses be utilized, not 4, going out onto South Grade Road to kind of adhere to some of the access management standards for a stretch of roadway like that. You know, in the submittal that the school district did, they looked at, I believe, 4 options for their parking lot, and they felt that from their perspective, what they submitted to us was the best option. The Planning Commission discussed that at length and decided to go ahead and make a recommendation to approve the 4 option, or the option that had 4 access points to School Road. Again, despite staff's recommendation that we stick with 3. So I guess that's kind of where this thing sits right now. I guess staff would like to reiterate that we fully feel that 3 is an appropriate amount. We believe that maybe some internal reworkings could be done to the parking lot to accommodate what the school district is looking for. I do know that Brian from the school district is also here tonight. And with that, I guess I'll open up to any questions you may have relative to that.
I guess I was, oops, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry,
Dave.
Steve. Dan, could you, has he got a drawing that would show the 3 accesses that we could look at? And what the commission is would like to see the 4th one and explain how that would work?
Yeah, Matt's going to pull it up here. Just give it a second.
All right, thank you.
And just to reiterate too, we got into this in more detail as Matt's pulling that up. Really, I think the school district's perspective is they'd like to separate their various modes of traffic. You know, they have parent traffic drop off. They've moved the buses to the east side of the building. They have staff parking lots, and then they also have some special education buses. And what they're doing is trying to separate that as best as they can. So that's kind of the goal of why they've wanted to ask for that 4th access point.
And which is there, I guess which, you want me to do?
Go to the one,
I'll do the
there should be
overhead
one that's just like a
first.
site plan.
Going down.
There's a couple different ones. Yeah, it'd been nice if we had an overall, but there's kind of split onto 2 pages because of the size.
They split it. That's the north one. All right. I can always, we've got other options I can refer it back to as well.
So just give Matt another second here to get that pulled up. With the having to do these meetings like this, it's not quite as efficient with our technology.
I don't know if this is the one you want, Dan, or if there's,
Yeah, that's just, I think that gives us an idea. So if everybody can see that, and I wish I had a pointer, but you know, to the right-hand side of the screen, the long, narrow parking lot that's kind of going north and south, that's the bus parking and drop off. That'll be accessed, I believe, from the middle school side of things. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll notice it says 8th Avenue Southwest. That's an existing intersection. And then there's a small intersection that's a little bit offset from that right now. The proposal would be to have more of a full access point up there. Kind of the intersection here at Question, I guess, is the next one to the south. You probably see the mouse pointer here move to it shortly of the school entrance. And that's the one where I believe, you know, staff is questioning the need for that one and wondering if there could be some, a different change to that parking situation. I believe the lot just to the south of that is the staff parking lot. And if you can go another page down, Matt, you'll see the other southern part of the site. Yeah, so that's the south part. So you'll see there on the farthest south end, there's a loop drive. That's more for drop off as well. And then that other parking lot on the left, that's more oriented, again, north and south. That's the southern end of that, some of the staff parking.
yeah, let me scroll up to kind of get maybe a broader overview. We can kind of see where it's at today.
Yeah, so that's what he's showing now is the existing conditions on site. And that ECFE building is up to the north there, and you can see that it's more of a driveway up there now versus more of a full access. And then right now you've got that access to the far south where the loop drive is, and then one to the north of that. So again, just an overview, staff is recommending 3. I guess from our perspective, as long as the spacing is appropriate, you know, I think from at least from my point of view, it'd be best to let the school district decide how they wanted to handle things internally and focus more on the amount of accesses that would be approved. And again, the planning commission level, it was a split vote. There was some discussion relative to a left-hand turn lane on School Road. I believe that's going to need more further study in conjunction with potentially a future project at the intersection of School Road and South Grade Road. And I think, to be honest with you, this evening we'd probably be focusing better our energies on just the amount of accesses that would be appropriate here. Certainly, Kent, feel free to jump in here too. Okay.
Dan, what is the timeline for them to get this project done? Is there a chance that there is time for us to kind of review this more?
Well, I don't necessarily know that, we need to review it more per se, as much as just get a decision made. I believe there's a couple bid lettings that are going to happen here, maybe one in July and then one in 2 weeks and then more in several weeks after that. And, and some construction potentially commencing in the fall. So, and again, I know we do have some representatives from the school district here. I'm not sure if you'd like to ask them to speak or not. But, they're very professional about their request and what they ask for. And I think they feel that that's the best, that they can provide. And I think staff's just trying to figure out what's the best for the traveling public, out in that South Grade Road area.
Yes, thanks. You mentioned that there were 3 other options that were looked at. When I was looking at it, it seems like maybe there's an option to combine the existing staff lot with this new one with maybe a different entrance, and close off the other one. And, there just seems to be several options, like you said, that would still help to separate the different types of traffic without adding that 4th access. So I would be in favor of supporting the staff's recommendation of just allowing the 3 accesses and then letting the school district come up with the best option that fits their needs out of that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. I think adding, if you have 4 entrances, then you have, that other car coming on. I think 3 would be better. That's just my feeling.
I also agree with that. It's a busy place out there.
Any other questions for staff?
Mayor, I know if you're willing, I guess, that I know Brian Moore from the school district wouldn't mind, I guess, addressing the council. It's up to you.
All right. No, that's fine. As long as Brian showed up, yes, have him come up, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Brian Moore, the Director of Buildings, Grounds, and Student Transportation. And also Mr. Darren Vanderheiden, the Superintendent of Schools, is here. But I want to try to keep this as brief as possible, and I welcome this opportunity to speak tonight. Just so you know, a little bit of background is, right now we don't have a name for the new school building, but one of the things that we wanted to capture in the community is we didn't want to build a big monumental school similar to Park Elementary School. So I want to lay a little bit of background as far as the thought process on where we went about and how we arrived at the proposal that's submitted. So West Elementary School, as it sits today, is going to be a pre-K through K building. First grade is going to be kind of shared between the 2 buildings. And then the new structure that's going to be built is 2nd and 3rd grade. And they're going to operate as independent schools. So it's not an addition to West Elementary School. So we wanted to keep those grades and those functions separated to that. So with the, and we agree, there's a million ways of skinning the cat. And through the design process, everybody knows there's there's financial restrictions that are in place. So there were a lot of alternatives, and the design process is an exercise in concession and give and take. So one of the big considerations is, yep, we can combine things, but it would cost us a lot of money. One of the things we looked at is, what can we save? What can we preserve out there right now? One of our principals said something that's really profound, I guess, and it should be in the back of our minds, is we don't want to cut the building. The building is hard to change and alter in the future. But as finances and resources and functions change, it's easy to change the outside things. So we didn't want to cut back on the building. So kind of walking through the drawings, if you guys have them in the back of your mind a little bit, is the south parking lot that currently serves West Elementary School. The circle drive that we refer to is currently a bus lot, and then there's staff that park in there. One of the considerations for design of schools is you want to give the parents the front door. So we're going to give the parents the front door. That is going to be visitor parking and parent drop off of students into that pre-K facility. The lot to the west of West Elementary School, that was another one. We had looked at a plan to combine those and tear them out, but that's a huge expense to be able to do that. So we wanted to save what we could there without rebuilding those parking lots. The parking lot to the west of West Elementary School is going to be a staff parking lot only. So one of the things that we have to do is, I agree, I don't like access points onto streets either, but one of the things we have to look at is the timing of those functions. So our staff that's using that west lot will be there before the buses, before the parents show up, and they'll be leaving after that. So it's a different time of the use and the function of that lot. So as was mentioned earlier, the bus traffic will be to the east, so that's coming off of a different street. The parents will come into that south loop for the parents of the West Elementary School children. The lot in the middle, the one that basically essentially the new access point that's going in, that's going to be for special education buses. And one of the things that we struggled with is we want to allow those buses to come in with a clear path and not have to fight traffic with the parents that are picking and dropping off. So that is also going to be our early childhood program is going to move into the current West Elementary School. So that parking lot will be used after hours. During the school day, it's primarily for those special education buses that will serve both of those facilities. So all the sped buses will come in through there. The new north lot is going to be visitor, a little bit of staff, and the parent drop off for the new 2-3 building. So if you think about the timing of those functions, is our special ed buses, they're just getting done with a run for our middle school and high school kids. So they're, whether it's in the morning or whether the afternoon, they've already served one run, and then they're coming back in to serve the elementary students. So our parents, they like to get there early and sit in that parking lot. What we're having a struggle with in the design is if we combine those two where we have parents and the special ed buses in the same loop, they'll be fighting each other in traffic internally. With the 4-axis, it's slightly different points when people are coming and going, but it will also allow people to get off the street. What we don't want is those special ed buses stacked up there on the street fighting with the parents to get into that drive. I know it's less than ideal, but it's the way that we could work out the timing and the separation of those functions between our parents dropping off, our faculty, and then those special ed buses that are coming in and out of there. So that's kind of the reason for the 4 of them. So I guess at this point, I'll open it up to questions that anybody may have.
I just have
Brian.
one question for you. This is Mary.
Yep.
How many special ed buses do you actually have? How many are going in and out of there?
We are running up to 10 special ed buses and about 4 or 5 additional vans. That population continues to grow. And that's a centrally located parking lot that would serve the special education busing that goes into both of those 2 facilities.
Thank you.
Steve, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess. Hi, Brian. Just
Oh, Mr. Cook.
when I was looking at it, it's like, why don't you provide, maybe close off the existing staff parking lot entrance on the very south side, and you're going to add a new entrance, and why not move that? This would be the new 3rd one, you know, to serve both of those, the staff parking lot plus the bus and EFC lot.
That's our fallback. That's the only other option we see where we can still get some separation of that. There shouldn't be any fighting for the timing of that going in and out of there. What we don't want to have happen is if parents start to use that and circumvent the system, but we can manage that part of it.
But that could happen even now, right? With the fourth
Correct.
one.
Yep. So it's always a training of the parents at the beginning of the school year.
All right, I kind of liked it, Brian, that you did explain the timing of it, which is I kind of understand your thought process, and after hearing that,
Ideally, I'm sorry to jump in, Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
but
go
you
ahead.
know, we're doing a big renovation project at the middle school to try to improve traffic flow there, because we want it. What's happened in my tenure here is more and more parents are driving their kids to school and fewer are busing. So we have to fight to accommodate that internally, and we tried to do that at the high school, but you can't get enough stacking space. So we really want to separate those functions to give the parents the front door and get them off the street as soon as possible and into those lots where they can sit and wait for their child.
I get that. I just think, you know, there's this other option that would work just the same way. So I'd still rather keep to the 3 accesses.
If there are no other questions, I just want to thank everybody for the time.
Darren, do you have anything to address the council?
I think Brian explained it pretty well. We're here just to answer any other questions you might have.
All righty, thank you. Any other discussion on it?
Make a motion to approve, but just with the 3 accesses. And then let the school district decide the best option to make that work.
Second.
Okay, motion by Steve, second by Dave to approve resolution number 15181. Any other discussion?
Mayor, I would just acknowledge that the motion was to approve it with
3.
The 3 access.
going from 4 accesses to 3 accesses. Yes, so that
All
was
right,
conditions as laid out in the resolution.
all right. All right, we'll call a motion. Mary,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
aye, motion carries. All right, moving on, City of Hutchinson Water Supply Plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, we are finally entertaining, I guess, a motion to adopt the City of Hutchinson Water Supply Plan dated October 2018. A little bit of background there. This has been in the works for quite some time. Some of the information you may have noticed if you read everything in the document is a little bit dated. It's not critical information per se, but there's some contact info, things of that nature. But in the end, we have a good document. Staff and the DNR, local DNR hydrology staff have spent a fair amount of time on this, and we bring it in front of you this evening. Just wanted to make a couple of points quickly. There's 2 primary reasons why these documents are adopted, and it's basically to prepare for an emergency response, and then it is also to implement sustainability measures. And if you read the document, that really, is interpreted as conservation rates. And we've talked a bit about conservation rates and the need for the city to address that for some time, and that's underway with our current rate study. Other than that, purely from a water supply treatment standpoint, we are in great shape. We obviously have the capacity at the water treatment plant. We have 5 wells, numbers 4 through 8 at this point in time. We've been very proactive with the maintenance of those wells, and primarily addressing corrosion issues in the last few years. Yeah, other than that, I think the big takeaway, it's alluded to a couple of times, is the possibility of future meter replacements and upgrading our meter technology. We do have the transmission automatic meter reading in place as of probably about 5-6 years ago, but we really need to look at our meters and look to start to replace some of those older dated meters out there, especially the larger meters on the larger services. And other than that, yeah, the big thing is, conservation measures, in essence, eliminating our current declining block structure. And we'll be addressing that within the rate study later this year. And then just, most importantly, this results in the renewal of the city's water appropriation permit from the DNR. That's the very last pages of this document. So that's removed as of May of this year, and that's basically indefinite until the DNR pulls it for some reason, which is very unlikely, or there's a new water supply plan drafted in 10 years, give or take, and then that'll be renewed again at that point. So with that, would entertain any questions.
I was just wondering about when the next one would be, but you said around 10 years or so.
Yep, it's typically 10 years. Yeah, there was one drafted around the 2008 timeframe that never was adopted. It got lost in the process. There was some debates with respect to our conservation rates and how those should be addressed within our lack of conservation rates, and how those should be addressed. And it ended up on somebody's desk and was buried for quite some time. So yeah, this is long overdue.
Any other questions for Kent?
It's really a lot of information in there, so it was good.
No, it's a good document. Yeah, I think the other thing from a water use standpoint, if you caught that, there's a chart towards the back, and there's also some numbers in a listing of years towards the front. But I think we talked for years, starting around the recession timeframe back in 08, 09, 10, when our water use started to significantly fall off. And then we always kind of wondered when we were going to hit the bottom, basically, from an overall use standpoint. And I think those numbers show that we found the bottom at, about 2014, and it's really seemed to level off between 14 and 17. And that's basically where we reside today. We've been stable the last few years, 18 and 19. The one thing this year, contrary to probably since 2013, how dry a spring and early summer we've had some significant water use early on here in the summer season. We haven't seen use like this for quite a number of years. So
I'm doing our part, Kent. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not on the conservation side of things, but it helps us on the revenue side of things. So anyways.
It's always interesting from where we get our water from, Kent, isn't it?
Yeah. Basically 400 feet in the ground.
Yeah.
And which direction it comes from.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Kent? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the Hutchinson Water Supply Plan. Roll call. Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Ken.
you.
Setting council workshop to review 2019 audit report for July 28th at July 28th, 2020 at 4:30 PM.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is just an annual review of the audit report. So we'll be looking to schedule that workshop prior to our July 28th council meeting.
A motion to approve that.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to approve. Roll call. Chad?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye, keeping us
Mary?
on our toes.
Oh,
Aye.
aye. Motion carries. Resetting August 11th, 2020 city council meeting due to primary election.
Yes, Mayor and Council, our first meeting in August falls on primary election day, and a part of state law notes that can't have public meetings between the hours of 6 and 8 p.m. on the election day. And so we'd ask the council to consider rescheduling that. I believe the last 2 years we rescheduled it to 4 o'clock on that same day. And then generally we've made sure that the agenda is at a level to where we'll be done by 6 o'clock. So I guess I'd ask the council to consider that, or I guess pick a different day.
I make a motion for 4 o'clock.
I'll second.
Motion by Dave, second by Chad to set the meeting for 4 o'clock on August 11th, 2020. All in favor, roll call. Dave?
And get my thing on.
Yeah.
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Governance, we have minutes, reports from committees, boards, or commissions. We have the Tall Grass Noxious Weed monthly report for May 2020. Hutchinson's Housing Redevelopment Authority board minutes from May 19th, 2020. Planning Commission minutes from May 19th, 2020. City of Hutchinson financial report and investment report for May 2020. Miles, are you still there?
Yep, you still hear him?
Alrighty.
Yes, sir.
Miles, I know at the HRA meeting, talking to Jean, and she kind of had you put a little report together for the employment levels in Hutchinson. Can you touch on that, please, for me?
Yeah, just a real brief summary. You know, we did a survey of manufacturers in Hutchinson just to get an idea of how they're being impacted by the pandemic. And so really, you know, I would say overall, I think most of them are doing okay. I think some of them are seeing some slowdowns in their orders. You know, we reached out to 24 different companies. 20 of them got back to us. And of that, I'm going to say a dozen would say, you know, they would basically say, well, we're holding our own. I mean, maybe orders are a little bit soft, but nothing that we can't handle. There's a couple smaller companies that are really getting hit hard. There's a couple of them that are basically not able to do anything now. I mean, all their orders just evaporated. But these are very small companies. I mean, employment is, 5 or 6 at the most at these. And then on the other side, there's 2 or 3 or 4 companies that are extremely busy because they're getting an avalanche of orders coming in. Mostly, one of them explained to me, he said, orders used to be going to Europe, but then that kind of got closed off because of the pandemic. So a lot of those orders are coming to us, and we are, busier than ever right now. We can hardly keep up. So there's about, I'm going to say there's 3 or 4 companies that fall into that category. I'm not aware of any, you know, aside from Hutchinson Technology, which had announced layoffs, you know, a couple months back, I haven't really heard very much in terms of layoffs. So I think mostly we're holding our own. I think mostly we're doing okay as far as I know. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say.
Alrighty, thanks, Miles. Does anybody have any other questions for Miles, as long as he's still here? Thanks, Miles, for that update.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep. Is Dan still here? Does he have anything for us, or is he gone?
I think Dan stepped out, so.
Okay. Let's see, Kent there?
Yep, he's still here.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor and Council, just a couple quick things. School Road, first and foremost, thank you for limiting those access points. Yeah, that's a situation out there that wouldn't have been made better with adding access points in that area. And like what was noted by Dan and others, there are other alternatives there. So just want to say thank you. It's a heavily traveled road with a variety of traffic and a variety of other access points already. So with that, we'll work with the school district to hopefully figure out the best solution. Secondly, Main Street, yeah, things continue to be going well. Obviously, a little bit more business activity going on out along Main Street now that the restaurants and bars can get people inside and the likes, and that's a good thing. I think the positive coming into that, and you know, I think people are now they've conditioned people from the beginning now coming out of the restrictions to utilize their back doors if they have them, and that's going well. You know, I think with Main Street and Zella's and others. Some don't have backdoor access like Domino's, and they've had a lot of business throughout, carry-out business, and the contractor's been very good about maintaining that access and plywood sidewalk around the corner, because they know come lunchtime they get a lot of foot traffic. So I don't know if council's heard anything from business owners or property owners and such. Yeah,
I think things are going well. I mean, I think they've dug the hole in front of my shop 5 times, put a pipe in, and then pack it down and put the dirt back and stuff. So it's been interesting watching the whole project. But those packers really rattle the buildings. Like, stuff rattles on the shelves in the back of the store from the front. So it's pretty wild watching them go.
Yep. No, and that's, yeah, from a property owner standpoint, you know, I would protect your interests. You know, it's the truth. There has been one inquiry on that front, and they may have submitted a claim that ultimately gets passed on to MnDOT, and then more than likely MnDOT would pass it on to the contractor to try to have it addressed by their insurance carrier.
Right. It's Mary. That's what I've been told, that one of the businesses had a few things that were damaged, you know,
Yeah.
But you know what? They're having like instead of a fire sale, it's a road sale now. So it'll all work out.
Kent, I was curious, did some people try to get in their water connection hookups within the window that was talked about?
Yes. We actually, you know, human nature, you know, a lot of people waited till the 11th hour, of course, but that is what it is. City staff then, you know, basically pointed the property owners in the right direction as far as contacting a different contractor, albeit R&R, the general contractor, utility contractor, has addressed some of them. The majority of them have been done by a different local contractor. I would say we're probably right around 7. So, you know, going into it, I think day one of the project, we had 1 known at that point in time. And then, yeah, we started getting inquiries and getting people steered in the right direction. Other
Just
than
a
that,
quick,
oh, go ahead, Dave.
yeah, we had, you know, I belong to the Odd Fellows, and we always assumed that the water and sewer came in from the alley. And so we were quite surprised after X amount of years of being in that building that it came in from the street. So we were one of those people that had to, we had to run like crazy to get somebody to change that over. And I don't think it's changed over yet, but
yep.
It was an interesting fact that we had certainly were not aware of over the years. So amazing.
Yeah, no,
we're not complaining. We're just surprised.
No, we've had our surprises, you know, obviously, older documents and installations involved. And, yeah, there's been a handful of things that are different than what we expected, no doubt. The only other thing I had just in general time frame wise is, the contractor is now basically has the utilities through Second Avenue, like what Chad alluded to. You know, they've dug 4 or 5 holes in front of his place, so he's through Second Avenue, and now they're basically on to building the roadway through the intersection of Second Avenue South, and then they will install the curb and gutter at that point in time, and that allows the contractor then, once they have that curb and gutter in for stage 3, they're able to then start on the full expanses of stage 4, which means then Third Avenue South would be shut down, which is bad news from a post office standpoint. So that might be happening prior to our next council meeting. So just wanted to reference that. You know, once they get the go ahead to go move onward with those pipes through Third Avenue South, you know, the post office street, or the street adjacent to the post office there, will turn into a dead end, you know, basically by Muddy Cow and the post office. And then to boot, you have the drive-through, well, the drop-off box traffic exiting onto that road also. So we're gonna do some restriping. That's within the plan documents, you know, to make it as good as possible. Basically have perpendicular parking on the post office side of the street, but you need to maintain 2-way traffic, obviously, to get in and out of there. And like I said, you'll have the drop-off traffic coming out from the alley also. So, yeah, maybe drive to Silver Lake to go to the post office, I guess. But anyways, yeah, it's not going to be pretty. So just want to give you guys a heads up. That's it.
Hey, Kent?
Yep.
How far ahead are they on their schedule? They're still ahead, right?
Yeah, I think they're thinking 2 weeks, give or take. Yeah, and they provided a revised schedule about a week ago that reflected that, and I think that might be conservative. You know, I think it might be more than that, honestly. Looking ahead, so they should have you know, concrete pavement through Second Avenue South intersection. Basically, I think the schedule said August 8th. So, you know, just past the first week of August.
Good. Thanks for that update.
Yep.
Go ahead, Steve.
Kent, just reading the water supply plan, you know, it talked about a per capita, you know, trends of residential and commercial and industrial. I was just wondering if you could provide kind of trend charts, actual usage, you know, from those years, just to see what that's done. I actually looked at the
is that the chart on page 73? I think
yeah,
okay.
There was a chart.
Yeah,
and then
maybe.
It was referenced that it's been going down slightly. So
yeah, and then they projected into the future. If you want to give that a peek, Steve, I think it's on page 73 of the document.
But that was just per capita, wasn't it?
Yes, that was. So you want total use for those classifications?
Yeah, if you could.
Okay.
Yeah, just
we
kind
can
of
do that.
curious.
Yep.
And then, yeah, that's all. I guess I checked our audit report for 2018, and then the back, there used to be a statistics section, and like utilities would, Hutch Utilities would have theirs broken up by different categories or uses. Our numbers were just total at that time, but now we don't have the statistics, so maybe this is a question more for Matt later on, but might be nice to get those added back in. Anyway, thanks. Yeah, if you can provide that, just kind of curious to see what those numbers look like.
We have it. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
Kent, what's the schedule for the total paving from First up to Washington?
Yeah, they filled in the driving lanes the last couple of days here. Yeah, they're actually doing some ped ramp work today. I think they're going to be back on doing the shoulder pours here shortly. I think it's their intent to get that done. I think the struggle they have, the concrete subcontractors, they have a lot of concrete to pour between the curb and the sidewalk and all the detail that has to go into the pedestrian, ADA compliant curb ramps and the roadway. And then have to do the same thing over in Litchfield also. They have that job. So yeah, they just have a lot of work. I'll commend them and the general contractor R&R for keeping on them and having things ready for them when they have the opportunity. I think they're here working long hours, but yeah. I think the other thing to note, albeit if the roadway is done, which it might be in early August, even through 2nd Avenue, the roadway isn't going to be opened in its entirety. So yeah, just please keep that in mind. The traffic signals have a significant lead time, specifically the poles and the mast arms. And I think that's going to be the struggle at the end of the day. And I don't believe MnDOT has any intentions of opening that roadway. At least I haven't heard anything to the contrary. That was clearly communicated as we developed the staging plan during the design process. So they don't have any intentions of opening that roadway in its entirety until the traffic signals are up and functional. So there might be concrete out there for quite a while, but nobody driving on it other than the east-west crossings.
How's the section south going? Sidewalks were being worked on first. I haven't been down there for a little while to know what that's like, but then also the resurfacing.
It's going well. Yeah, they're on top of it. Like I said, I think that the things are prepped, they're ready, and when the concrete contractor has a window of time and personnel, they're down there doing, it's a variety of things. It's curb ramps, it's curb, but they're out into the roadway in some areas, taking up panels to make the grades work for the sidewalks. So it's a lot of piecemeal work. At the end of the day, per the specifications, when they remove a piece of concrete on the south end of the project, they have 14 calendar days to have it back into place and in service. So
then the resurfacing, that actually gets done after all the concrete work is done?
Yes. Yeah. And that is scheduled for late August, I believe, into early September on their schedule. There's about 2 weeks of work there to accomplish that under traffic.
All right. Anything else for Kent?
Yep. One more, not on Highway 15 Main Street, Civil Air Patrol Airport utility extensions. We are postponing the bid opening basically a month to July 22nd. That'll better align with where the Civil Air Patrol is at within their project development process. So we just want to, be fair to potential contractors bidding this work, that we're not going to hold their bids for an extended period of time, because we're going to want some certainty from the Civil Air Patrol that they're going to deliver their project. Everything's in place. The agreement's been executed by them. we've heard they've had the funding dedicated by the state. I think the issue that might take some time, all their architectural work, site development work, engineer drawings, et cetera, have to go through the state process, you know, to get their blessing because they're providing the money to them. So we still hope that we'll award in late July. We'll build our utilities in August, September, and then basically the Civil Air Patrol, if everything goes well, will then have the ability to connect into sewer and water, bring it into their site as they're doing their site work and probably prepping for their building foundation just before snow arrives this fall.
All right, Kent, thanks.
Thank you.
I knew you'd Columbo me one of these times. So that's good. Matt, is there any other staff that wants to have anything for the council?
We either have Chief Gifferson, he says he doesn't have anything, and Mark doesn't have anything, but they're both here.
Okay, well, then we'll move on. Chad, why don't we start with you tonight?
I don't have anything else.
All right, Dave?
I suppose I better turn that mic on. Yes, I do have one thing. I think things are really going well through the city of Hutchinson and pleasantly pleased with that by all means. I would like to make a suggestion that we start meeting back in chambers again. So now I want to hear all the pros on that.
Well, actually, I was going to bring that up too. I think that we should be able to meet back in chambers. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
Matt, do you know what the current recommendations are for social distancing and meetings and things?
Well, I think you're still within there. They're still recommending the 6 feet apart, you know, be within the, I think, 25 people up to 250. So, you know, the one challenge obviously that we have is that 6 feet of separation amongst all of this. That's the biggest challenge.
I think these meetings have been working fine, and I think until they lift that 6 feet, I think our hands are tied because that chambers is not set up to do the 6 feet. And when we were over at the event center, that was kind of a disaster. So I'd say we just do this because it works all right.
Yeah, and the one thing too, we would, you know, the recommendation still is to have it optional for, even if we were to meet, you would have to make accommodations for, obviously, if any of you were not comfortable to make that available to yourselves.
Well, I totally agree with Chad. You know, until we can sit in those chairs and do it right, we need to be meeting this way. Those are just my thoughts.
I would go along with that as well.
Yeah, I'd surely like to meet in chambers, but until the restrictions are lifted, like Chad says, I think our hands are tied.
I'll drop my comment then.
All right, you have anything else, Dave?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Mary?
The only thing I have is there's a little update to the library. They are now scheduling limited computer appointments at the library. So that'll be nice for people who don't have a computer at home. And you can call the library and they will set that up with you. They have also done a lot of things at the library. You'll see some more social distancing, things marked off. You know, you're not just going to be able to wander there. And I also hear that they now have plexiglass by their checkout area. So they're doing a lot of things. They've cleaned everything. I think JJ has been there a lot, you know, and worked with the city. And I think they're getting to the point where they're slowly trying to get a few things up and running. So that's the only thing I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Steve?
Just the one thing that I alluded to with Kent, with our audits, if we could have those statistics still added at the end, is there a problem with doing that or extra cost?
I'll have to ask Andy. I don't know if that was something he pulled or if something the auditor pulled. I guess I'm not familiar with why we were tracking it and then that stopped. So I can talk with him, especially with the audit coming up at the end of July to see if we can get those back in there. That's just for the total water usage based off of classes.
Well, there's water, there's the utilities, Hutch Utilities, their usage, there's tax information and employee counts, it's just a wide variety of different things. And it was an easy place to go to once, not that look at it all the time, but every once in a while a question would come up and there you could go and look for it.
That night, so.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I can talk
once in a while.
Yeah. I can talk to Andy and see if we can get that put back in or what the rationale was anyways, so.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Thanks, Steve. Matt, what do you have?
Just a couple things. Quick reminder that offices are going to be closed Friday, July 3rd. That's in observance of Independence Day holiday. And the planning and zoning offices are back open to customer facing services. We've completed that project. If you have an opportunity, you can kind of see some of the safety measures that we've put in. I actually even think that might address some long-term questions that we had over there for security purposes. And then just two more things. Absentee voting starts this Friday. And you can absentee vote here at City Center. We're going to open up the council chambers to allow that to take place. Obviously, the primary election is in August. And then, just talking with Andy, we did receive our first half tax payments. And I know there's kind of some questions on what does that look like in regards to the COVID, at least from our initial snapshot view of that, we haven't seen any necessary significant changes to our tax collection for the first half of the year. What we don't know is, okay, how many people paid maybe their full year's taxes up front, but at least from a collection standpoint, it's consistent with what we've had in past years. So, because I know that's a question that's been asked, especially with the whole COVID and whether or not we were going to see any changes in that. At least with the first half payments, we have not seen any significant changes. Otherwise, that's it.
All right, thanks, Matt. The only thing I have is, we get a lot of flack about not opening the pool and not having softball and baseball and everything for the kids. But what the general public has to understand is that we do have children of our own, and some of us have grandkids. So, our hands are kind of tied on what we can do and what we can't do. So I'm just trying to do the best for Hutchinson, and the rest of the council is too. So just want to throw that out there. We're trying to do the best we can.
Believe me, it was not a popular decision at my house.
No, not at my house either. Now that I have 3 grandkids living with me while they're building their new house. So trust me, if I could send them to the pool, I would. So,
and I'll it's out there as I do with everything else. I'm more than willing to sit down, have a phone conversation with somebody if they want to ask some of the questions. I'll gladly do that to walk through the rationale on why we made the decisions that we did. Like I said, it's made with some thought, and for every decision that was made, we had 3 or 4 alternatives, and at the end of the day, we had to go with the decision that we felt was in the best interest of the community for multiple different reasons and purposes. And so sometimes it's easy to look at 1 or 2 reasons, and many times there's probably 3, 4, or 5 reasons for the decisions that we made. And so I would gladly, anybody wants to give me a call or even stop in, I'd gladly walk people through those decisions or the reasoning behind those decisions that we made. So.
Yeah. All right, if anybody have nothing else, I guess, we should go home, huh?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Dave to adjourn. Roll call, Dave,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe night.